Today we're focusing on some offseason rumors, talking with Tyson Barrie and Max Domi. We have Patrick Marleau set for a very big evening, shattering a major record in the NHL. We also have some prospect signings and a suspension to discuss. We'll jump into the latest coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a variety of news here today to discuss. First up, let's start here with a few prospect signings. The New Jersey Devils have signed their one of their top prospects here, their first-round pick from the 2020 draft, 7th overall, Swedish winger Alexander Holtz, who could be one of the best goal scorers out of the 2020 NHL draft. Certainly looks like they're really promising, solid young player here, has put pen to paper and has signed his 3-year entry-level contract. He played this past year over in Sweden in the SHL and is poised to make the jump to North America for this coming fall. So obviously yet another solid young piece for New Jersey. Obviously we saw them move out some veteran guys here at the deadline and really accelerate this youth movement, and Holtz is going to be a big part of that here of the future. So that's a great signing for them. It'd be interesting to see how well he transitions to the NHL level. We saw one of his Swedish teammates and for other top prospect with Lucas Raymond signed with Detroit just a few days ago. So be really curious to see how well they kick things off here in the NHL next fall. The Columbus Blue Jackets have signed right-wing prospect Carson Meyer to his entry-level deal. He was a 2017 6th-round pick. He actually played 4 full seasons in the NCAA and already started this year on an AHL contract, so he's got about a dozen or so games at the AHL level. So obviously they were happy enough to get him in his two-way NHL ELC here. So Carson Meyer gets his contract official here with the Jackets. And we also seen as another signing here, an extension in the Arizona Coyotes organization. They've extended Ilya Lyubushkin for 1 more year. He's been in the Coyotes organization for 3 years now, playing on a variety of 1-year contracts since coming over from Russia. He was an undrafted guy that came over a little bit late. He's 27 years old now, and he's seems to be fitting in well with the Coyotes organization. They're happy with him to keep him around. He gets a little bit of a bump up in pay and goes to $1.35 million. Now, as I mentioned, it's going to be an absolutely huge evening tonight for San Jose Sharks and Patrick Marleau as they go into Vegas to play the Vegas Golden Knights. Tonight is the big night where Patrick Marleau will break one of the major records in the NHL. That's the all-time games played record set by NHL legend Gordie Howe. Now, of course, it took Gordie Howe a lot longer to hit this plateau. Gordie Howe played well into his 50s here, so Marleau's a decade younger than that, so the fact that he's able to accomplish it is an amazing feat. Marleau has been incredibly durable and healthy throughout his career. At one point, he had one of the longest Ironman streaks going here as well. Marleau's played 23 seasons in the NHL after going number 2 overall way back in the draft. Of course, him and Joe Thornton, and their draft year went 1-2, ended up in different teams, but then became longtime teammates. They've both done stints in Toronto, but of course, Marleau is now back in San Jose, which seems right for him to break this record in a Sharks jersey. I know there was a lot of talk around the deadline if he would get picked up again for another shot at a Stanley Cup. Patrick Marleau has done pretty much everything but win a Stanley Cup, so I wonder how long he'll continue to play to chase that dream. With 1,768 games played. So congratulations, Patrick Marleau. I hope you have one heck of a night. I know he's got some special gloves to commemorate the evening. It has the games played record on it, the logos of all the teams he's played for, all done up with gold etching. So really nice gesture there. I'm not sure if the team did those up for him or if he had them made himself, but either way, some really nice mitts to go into tonight's game with. I'm sure there'll be a big ceremony as well, but certainly not often you see a major record like that be broken. Of course, one of the next ones we might see in the next few years would be Alex Ovechkin maybe breaking Gretzky's goal record for the most goals all time. That's certainly a possibility. He's well on pace to do it, but it really boils down to how long he plays. I mean, Marleau, like I said, has played well into his 40s here now, and not only is he going to break the record, it'd be interesting to see how many he adds on to it, because it's really difficult to say how much longer he keeps going chasing that Stanley Cup. But he's been healthy. He's been pretty fortunate to avoid much for injuries over the years. I'm sure his body's got lots of wear and tear, mind you, but good on him for having such a long, durable career. Now, as I mentioned as well, we have a suspension to discuss. Not a huge surprise here. We saw Alex Edler and Zach Hyman have a situation last night in the Maple Leaf Vancouver game, and Vancouver's return to play after 3 weeks off here with their COVID situation. Alex Edler had a knee-on-knee with Hyman. Hyman went down in a huge amount of pain, obviously left the game, did not return. Right now, his health is a big question mark for the Maple Leafs, and that's a big blow for Toronto. We all know how important Zach Hyman is. We know he had a knee surgery not long ago as well. So I believe the remarks from Sheldon Keefe was going to be that he had an MRI done in Vancouver. They're kind of waiting on the results. I would imagine either tonight or tomorrow we should have a better idea on how things are looking for Hyman. I know the players were saying last night in the room and after the game that things looked, somewhat promising considering what happened, but it's hard to tell. Sometimes you get a better idea the next day or so. So we'll see. But Alex Edler has been suspended for 2 games. I mean, there was a lot of Vancouver media not really making excuses, but certainly blaming the fact that where the Canucks have been off for so long that obviously their conditioning wouldn't be up to par. And obviously, and on top of that, Alex Edler got caught out on a really long extended shift. I think it was like over 3 minutes. I did see part of the game, but I didn't see that live. I only caught the replay, so I'm not sure the exact time that he was out. I mean, I caught the end of the game, which was, also somewhat dramatic. But clearly, it was a bad play by Edler. Now, he has been suspended before in the past. It's been a while, but still, he's had a situation like this once before. He's had a few things come up throughout his career. He's not really a dirty player, but this was a lazy play. I'm not really sure what he was doing. It's not called for, not cool, and could certainly result in a major injury to Hyman. So good on the NHL for suspending him. He was also given a game misconduct and kicked out of the game. The Leafs had a 5-minute power play out of that penalty. So, it was a bad situation. I know Leafs fans were really ticked off by it. Hyman's a really important player, so close to the playoffs. Hopefully he's not out too long term, but I guess we will have to see. Hopefully the news is not too bad here, but certainly the suspension is more than justified based on what we saw last night. And of course, like I said, at the end of the game, the Leafs thought they scored with like 19 or 20 seconds left. You can make an argument that the puck probably was in, that you could not see 100% replay though, because of the way Holtby was shoved up against the post and everything, and kind of hiding the puck, that he kind of hit it well. It looked like it was in, but you really couldn't prove it. And then basically they said that they could not conclusively say it was a goal. The call on the ice was not a goal, so they had to be able to see 100% that it was in, and you really could. I know there was a few Leaf fans I saw on social media sharing different, things blowing up or whatever. I personally haven't seen anything yet that I'm convinced 100% it was in. I think based on my gut feeling and what the positioning of Holtby and everything, that it likely was in, but I don't really have any evidence to say with 100%, and if you don't have that, you can't call it a goal. The game goes to overtime. Canucks win. Bo Horvat with the winner. Canucks win in their return. It was a fun game to watch, especially for somebody who doesn't cheer for either team. But I tell you, I can understand why Leaf fans were ultimately very frustrated after that one was over. Not only because of the injury and now the suspension to Edler, but how things ended, and not getting that extra point. Could be big. It could cost them the division lead, depending on how things go here as they battle the other teams like the Jets down the stretch. Now, jumping into the last part of the video here, I want to take a look at some offseason rumors, focusing on 2 guys, Tyson Barrie and Max Domi. Now, we learned earlier today that Max Domi for the Columbus Blue Jackets is going to be a healthy scratch again. Now, he was a healthy scratch before. This is not the first time this has come up under head coach John Tortorella, and we've seen him kind of play in a different way. Like there was one game where he was just kind of running around, really kind of reckless. And this seems like he's frustrated. He's not having a good season. The points are not adding up. He really hasn't fit there after being traded for Josh Anderson. It's probably that much more frustrating for him to see how well Anderson is doing in Montreal. But overall, it just hasn't been a good fit. And there's a lot of wonder and talk and speculation that Domi is likely going to be moved in the offseason. I'm not 100% convinced of that. However, though, I would not be shocked based on how things have gone. And you can also lump the situation with Patrick Laine into here. Laine, we always know, has been a streaky player, but ultimately, he hasn't. You could argue that he hasn't really fit well in Columbus either. But a lot of that, to me, is the style of play that's preached by John Tortorella. I think if they were to move on from Torts and get a different coach in there who could implement a different style and kind of make some adjustments here, that, you know what, they could fit well. And they'd have some more players that they're going to have to bring in to really change up the style here a little bit, but they're kind of going through a little bit of an overhaul anyway. They were rumored to be making some other moves in the offseason, like we could finally see a goaltender traded, and there could be some other things happen. So I'm not 100% sure that Domi or Laine will be moved by the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think as far as we understand here, Tortorella's in the final year of his contract with Columbus, and I wouldn't be completely shocked here if they move on from him instead and try to give these players a little bit more of an opportunity to succeed with the Jackets, because when you make these big trades and you bring these guys in and things don't work out, you normally can't just sell them off and get back anything close to what you paid to bring them in. I mean, they gave up Josh Anderson to get Domi. They're not going to be able to trade Domi and get something equivalent to Anderson back. It's just not going to happen. They gave up Pierre-Luc Dubois to get Patrick Laine. Like, the way Laine's played since he's been there, the Jets wouldn't trade him back. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're not doing well enough to justify what their old perceived value was. So I don't really see a situation where they do that. I think it's time for a head coaching change in Columbus myself. But if they decide to stick with Torts and the style's not going to change, once we get clarity on his future, then that's going to tell me that they probably could trade Domi as a real possibility this offseason. It wouldn't be shocking. And you never know. It might be frustrating enough for him that he may ask for a move too. Hard to say. But there's certainly a lot of people out there questioning the future of Domi in Columbus after he's made yet another time. So we'll see what happens. Now, the other interesting article I came across on The Athletic today was concerning the future of Tyson Barrie in Edmonton. Now, it's not even so much a case of does Edmonton like Barrie, and if things working out, we know that they are. Tyson Barrie is putting up a ton of points, having certainly a resurgence here as an offensively capable defenseman, obviously working on the power play especially, and getting a lot of chance 5-on-5 with guys like Draisaitl, McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, etc. Like, he's playing with a good group, he's found his confidence back, and he's racking up the points. Offensively, his numbers are really, really solid. So the problem here is that he signed in Edmonton on a fairly cheap contract because he didn't have a good year last year. Things didn't go well in the experiment going to the Maple Leafs. So obviously that was, you could argue, probably largely impacted Mike Babcock, but not entirely. I mean, it was part of it. But either way, he's back to what he used to be with the Avalanche, and he's going to be looking for a big raise. So the article in The Athletic suggests that the Oilers are not going to want to commit a longer-term, bigger money contract to Tyson Barrie, that they're likely going to walk away from that, and he's going to become a free agent that's on the move yet again. Now, he's a pending UFA, so he's likely heading to free agency either way, but I found that very surprising, and another offseason rumor that I'm going to say I probably disagree with. Now, there are some other complications here. I mean, the future of Oscar Klefbom is going to have an impact on the future of Tyson Barrie, because if Klefbom's coming back and he's capable to play, okay, that will impact how much money they can have tied up here in that blue line in that kind of offensive role. And Klefbom would probably be a tough player to trade after being out for an entire year with the shoulder surgery. So, but there is a possibility based on what I've been seeing from other reports that maybe Klefbom doesn't come back. Maybe he won't be able to return to 100% and decides that he's done in the NHL. Now, if that were to happen, that would certainly give the Oilers a lot more flexibility, because we also know that Barrie's not the only big question mark on this Oilers team. One of their top forwards, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, also a pending UFA. They've been negotiating off and on all season long and had a really difficult time so far finding common ground. Now, that's not a good sign considering where we're at in the year, but there's still plenty of time before it really gets really concerning and they can really talk to other teams. But Ken Holland does have his work cut out for him with guys like Nugent Hopkins, who wants to stay. He wants to be an Oiler. He'd like another longer term contract extension, and Tyson Barrie certainly earned one. But you get Evan Bouchard, who's coming up through the ranks, capable as well. Now you get Adam Larson's another wild card in that blue line that could find himself on the go. Now he's a different style defenseman, and maybe the Oilers go more of an offensive blue line, and maybe he walks. Because the other thing is here, too, is that Darnell Nurse is going to be needing a big-time contract extension in the not-too-distant future as well. So they're going to have to juggle here, and they're going to have a hard time keeping everybody. So it gets complicated. When you have that much money tied up, and guys like McDavid and Draisaitl, just like we talked about with the Leafs, with their big 3 or 4 players, with Matthews, Marner, Tavares, and Nylander, same idea. It makes it difficult for a lot of the other money to be spread around, and to have another big-time contract makes it super challenging. So I guess we'll have to see, but I'm not entirely convinced these guys change teams. I think the Oilers might not have any choice but to keep Barrie in the mix and to figure something out, but it's going to be awfully challenging for them to keep RNH and Barrie in the mix after this year, given what the kind of contracts they're both going to be looking for. So let me know what your thoughts are on these players. Do you see guys like Domi and Barrie moving on in the offseason, or do you think there's a situation, especially in Edmonton, where the Oilers are going to have to pony up the money and figure out a way to keep Tyson Barrie because he's become that much of an important piece back there? So let me know your thoughts, and we'll discuss further down in the comments. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news from around the entire NHL as we head towards the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.